If you've been in handguns for a while, it probably went like this. Sure, striker guns are fun, but now you got a couple of them, and now you want a 1911. Kind of the godfather that popularized the semi-automatic handgun. It's pretty much the equivalent of a 60s steel muscle car in the world of plastic and aluminum cars. Today, we'll look at Bull's entry-level 1911. It's got a really fancy name. It's, well, 1911 Government. Are you ready? Stand by. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel, the only gun channel here on YouTube that is dripping with that BDE. That's right, Big Dad Energy. If you can name your 4-year-old child's 4 favorite toy channels on YouTube and the top 3 annoy the crap out of you, then go ahead and hit that like button. I'm David, and this is the Bull Armory 1911 Government. Now, what Government means is that it's a 5-inch 1911, but hopefully you knew that already. I compete with Bull race guns in USPSA. I think they're pretty awesome guns, obviously. This is still going to be a review, but I'm going to attempt, I'm not going to succeed, I promise, but I'm going to attempt simply to give you facts, allow you to make your own judgment, and try and keep it all objective like you guys say you like your reviews to be. But that said, it's a pretty awesome gun, and it's pretty easy to get excited about, so forgive me when that happens. So the way that this usually goes is you get excited that you want to buy a 1911, and generally speaking, on your first 1911, you have between $600 and maybe $900 at the top end to buy your first 1911, and that gets you access to a bunch of pretty good 1911s. And what that's typically going to get you is going to be a smooth front strap. It's going to come with some pretty but pretty much worthless laminate wooden grips. The trigger, while being better than most striker triggers, is kind of lame for a hammered fired weapon. You're going to get some pretty lame sights, and you're going to get a short guide rod. You're going to get a mushy single-sided safety, and generally you're going to get a pretty terrible finish. The stainless guns usually max out that price point, and the blued guns are either blued, which wears off if you look at it crossways, or parkerized, which wears off if you look at it crossways. So the Bull gun is going to be entering kind of the top end of that band, and the MSRP on these is $850, but if you shop around, you can find them for sub $800. So we'll take it point by point for all the criticism that I just threw out of all the kind of the budget 1911s and tell you kind of how the Bull stacks up against that. So first and foremost, and this is a super premium feature, if you pay a gunsmith to checker the front strap of your 1911 pistol, it's going to run you between $200 to $300 typically. There's some other like silly little grip panel wraparounds that you can get from the front strap, and there's also skate tape. Some people put skate tape here, and that's a solution for a little bit, but the Bull 1911 is going to come with checkering on the front strap, and that's important because that's where you resist all the recoil that comes from a 45 ACP like this one. The mainspring housing is similarly checkered. It is aluminum and not stainless, so it doesn't quite match up on finish to the rest of the gun because it's not steel. The front and back strap are both plenty bitey, and that's really how you kind of control recoils with good front to back squeeze. I've done other videos you can check out on how to manage recoil. Next is the grips. Now, typically you get these really cool looking but usually worthless wood grips that are made out of laminate wood. It's not real wood, it's a bunch of little like popsicle sticks that are glued together and stained to look like real pretty wood. They're not really that great. These are G10 grips. One big advantage of G10 grips is when your hands get sweaty, it just kind of like soaks into whatever the material that G10 is. But the other side of it is they look really darn cool. These are basically, it looks like there's 2 or 3 colors in it. It is a golf ball pattern with a thumb relief scoop to get at the mag release. So that is pretty cool. It is a kind of, it's been defanged, so it's not a super aggressive one, but it does bite into your palms, which is quite nice. So out of the box, the Bull 1911 is good to go on the front strap, good to go on the grips. Moving on to the trigger that I've talked about. Now, I've owned a couple of those like sub $900 1911s, and all of them have kind of the same, like it's a little bit mushy. It's still a decent trigger, but it's not great. The Bull trigger that comes on this, and I saw my buddy Ben at the range when I was filming yesterday, and he had the exact same comment that I had about this trigger. This trigger pulls at 3.5 pounds, and it is like a glass rod breaking on the sear to hammer engagement. So if I load up the trigger with pressure, I meet a very firm wall and keep going, and eventually the hammer drops and there's almost no over travel. While this trigger isn't quite as good as their full-on race guns, it's still pretty doggone good. I'm not gonna go spend $150 to $300 for all the go fast parts to drop in this thing. If you hate money, that's still an option available to you, but it's completely unnecessary. Moving on to the sights, it comes with the standard Novak cut sights, but the rear sight is a blacked out rear steel sight, and the front sight is similarly a blacked out target iron. What's great about that is everybody's got different preference on their sights, except nobody likes 3-dot sights, except for there's like 3 guys who comment that on all of my videos. Nobody really likes 3-dot sights. So if you decided you wanted to personalize the sights, you don't have to buy a whole set of sights. You can just buy an appropriate front sight. That if you want a night sight, you can do that. If you want a brass bead, you can do that. If you want fiber, if you want narrower black sight, whatever you need, you can just buy one sight, which is a nice feature to have. Moving on to the guide rod, and this is kind of cool, is the guide rod and will hit the barrel at the same time. Most of these budget guns come with short guide rods, which, you know, it's not really a big deal, but I think that it's nicer to have the full-length guide rod from a reassembly. It's not as a pain in the butt to put the gun back together. You will need a paper clip or a staple or something to get the gun apart. However, it's not that big a deal. One thing that's really cool about the Bull 1911s is that they're offered in both a heavy cone bull barrel, is what it's called, not like the brand Bull, but B-U-L-L, which adds a little bit of thickness to the barrel diameter. It creates more non-reciprocating mass. It just looks really cool with the slide lock back. I mean, like, look at that. With the full-length guide rod and the bull barrel right there, it just looks super awesome. But if you're looking for a gun to use in competition, don't get the bull barrel version of the gun. I happen to really like it. It's great for like race guns and like limited in USPSA, but both IDPA and USPSA say that 5-inch guns need to have a bushing barrel. So they offer this with a bushing barrel, and that would honestly be my recommendation if you're looking at gaming. If you just want a nice 1911 to kick around with, then the bull barrel's pretty awesome. I really like the bull barrels. And then we have the mushy safety issue, and this does have a single-sided safety, and it's still mushy. That's one area that this is a price point gun. It is built to a price point, so the super, like, I can press on the safety in the off position and there's a little bit of wiggle. High-end 1911, 2011s, like the way they are on my open gun, where they actually fit ambi safeties on there, it's just, they're not spending the labor time. But what they did do with their safety, and to their credit, is that the blending from the safety onto the frame is absolutely gorgeous. So a lot of people, when they get a new 1911, develop a callus right there at the base of your thumb from basically having a 45 shove you in the web of your hand right there. This doesn't do it at all. I mean, I haven't had a gun with a non-blended safety in quite a while, but shooting this at the range yesterday to get the filming, it wasn't a problem at all. And finally, finishing up with the finish of the gun. This is a stainless steel gun, and I am told it is a forged frame. It is absolutely gorgeous. I guess it's like a bead blasted finish, I'm not sure, but man, it looks absolutely fantastic. And when you tie it together with the black bits that they put on the gun, the mag release, the hammer, the safety, and then the sights, plus the G10 kind of like monochrome grips, like, it creates a really cool aesthetic that I really like. I really like stainless steel guns. Like, I still want to buy a CZ75 in stainless steel, not because I have any need of having a CZ75 or Beretta 92 Inox. Like, I want all the guns to be stainless steel, like, all the time. They're gorgeous guns, and this is a gorgeous gun. So hitting on some of the rest of the stuff that you probably want to know about, the gun is going to ship in a plastic egg foam lined crate that is not as good as the other Bull cases that they send out. It's a price point gun, guys. You can't get too picky. It's going to ship with 2 of these Mech-Gar magazines, and this is a 45, so it's got 8-round capacity. It's got a nice plastic bumper that mates up with the frame beautifully so that you can't over insert and damage your ejector. But there's 2 of those guys. The follower design is pretty good. The feed lips are pretty good. The anti-friction coating on the mags allows the follower to slide up and down nicely. I didn't have any problems feeding the gun. I only tested 2 different types of ammo, some 230 ball, as well as some critical defense, which it fed no problem. All right. Hornady critical defense. Let's see how she does with some hollow points. 5 shots, 15 yards. See how the sights hit. Yeah, no problem. Handles it fine in recoil too. Actually, it's pretty mild, all things considered. You may have noticed by now, but it comes with forward cocking serrations, and this is how I like to manipulate guns, so I really like to have that. Even on my 1911s that didn't have those, I would still manipulate from the front of the slide, but this is quite a nice feature to have. Talking about the fit of the gun, the gun feels pretty doggone tight. It's not going to be like super gunsmith tight where you have to fire like 500 rounds to get it to break in and fire fit it together. It runs straight out of the box. As I mentioned, I took it straight out of the box, didn't even clean it or anything like that, and it It immediately fed everything I threw at it, but it was 100% reliable with what I was doing. And Bull's always great about giving you some extras. In the bag that has your owner's manual, their bore brushes, and the jag, they generally throw in some stickers and maybe a patch, and this is no exception to that. As far as where I land on the pistol, I am absolutely hugely fond of this pistol. I've owned, as I mentioned, I owned one of the SIG $900 1911s. I owned one of the Smith & Wesson E series. I looked hard at the R1s from Remington. I looked hard at the Ruger SR 1911s, and this gun feels a lot more like a Dan Wesson than it does any of those guns. I actually competed with a Dan Wesson Valor in IDPA several years ago, and that was like my go-to #1 main gun, and this gun reminds me of that gun a lot. In fact, the only real differences I could point to is that the safety on the Dan Wesson was fit a lot tighter, like it was a really good safety, and it came with Heine straight 8 night sights, which are more expensive sights. But that was a $1,700 gun, and this is an $800 gun for sale like 8 or 9 years later. So kind of the conventional wisdom if you wanted to get into a 1911 was always to buy like a Springfield Armory range officer, then kind of like build it up to kind of the stuff that you want. But I mean, realistically, the only thing that this gun doesn't come with out of the box is a magwell. If you wanted an ambi safety, you could get it fit. It's not that big a deal. The grips are actually cut out to accept an ambi safety. It's got the little bump at the top. So if you wanted to fit an ambi safety, you absolutely could. So an ambi safety, a front sight, and a magwell is basically all you need, and you would have a 1911 that hangs with basically any other 1911. With these fancy new cameras, I was able to take these really cool pictures with it, and I'm debating opening up a shop to sell wall art featuring cool photographs that I take of the guns that I review. So if you want some cool photos for your man cave, drop a note in the comments and let me know. I appreciate you guys, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care, guys.